Welcome, Miracles Tribe members. I'm Theresa McGallicher, joined here by my partner, Carly Judd Hardy. And today we have a special guest all the way from Auroville, India. And that's Monique Guathier. She's a friend and a sister of A Course in Miracles with us. And Carly is going to tell you a little bit about her.
Thank you, Theresa, and thank you, Monique. What fun to have you with us. And it's hard to believe that via Zoom we can do this, isn't it? That we can connect with someone that far away. But yeah, Monique's story is so interesting. We were excited to share it with you. She grew up in Canada, but she said if a bio is supposed to be short, all she would really like hers to say is that she's spirit. Just like all of us, she is here to contribute to all of us becoming happier. But if a bio needs to say something about what she's been up to in this thing called life, then she'll tell you that she was born in Canada to American and French Canadian parents. And she's always been fascinated, they were as well, about how culture shapes our perspectives. Her adolescence was spent in a Catholic boarding school in Quebec City, and then she completed a BA in communications from the University of Minnesota. While she was a student at the University of Minnesota, she volunteered at a consciousness research organization and a center for the terminally ill. During that time, she became interested in just the wholeheartedness of life and the experiences that it brought. In 1988, she met her husband, Daniel Greenberg, who was pursuing his PhD in child development and education within intentional communities. So together, they set off in a Volkswagen camper over 30 communes across North America. So that gives you a little background as to what Monique is doing now that she is residing full-time in Auroville, another intentional community. But she was inspired by the midwives at The Farm, the name of a community in Tennessee, and she became a certified professional midwife. Over the past 30 years, she's attended births and practiced in New England and Ontario. So that gives you just a little bit of her brief history. She is so interested in consciousness and sustainability and how we live together in that place. So I will turn it over to you, Monique, and we would love to hear also about when you found A Course in Miracles and how that informs your life now.
Wow. Well, thank you very much. I'm very grateful to be here. And let's see, where shall I start? Well, we were talking about in college. I was sitting in a campus just on the lawn, and a friend came by and was sitting with me, and she talked about this amazing book. And so I was 20 years old, and she talked about a book called A Course in Miracles. And she talked about it in almost mystical terms. So my interest was totally piqued. And so I was working at a New Age bookstore afterwards, and that became the book that I recommended to everybody because I fell in love with it. And I read it. I made a promise to myself to just read the book 15 minutes every night, whether I understood it or not, just do that. And it took me about a year to read the first time. And then later on, I ended up doing the lessons. But I thought if I could just make that commitment, that would be pretty good for me at that point. And while reading it, I did not understand a lot of it the first time around. But it was a very funny feeling that I would have. I'd have like this, I don't know, like crunchy popping thing would happen in the back of my brain while I was listening, like something's happening back here. So while I was reading, it was kind of an experience that I was learning something that was a little bit above me, but that it would eventually congeal. That I kind of got. And so that was the beginning of Course in Miracles. I call it my guru. And I've guru shopped. I worked in an organization that was affiliated with Noetic Science, which looks at consciousness. And so I was exposed to a lot of writers and speakers on the topic of consciousness. And then when I was traveling around, a few years later, going to intentional communities. And at that point, hippies who were living in these communities were now in their mid 40s. And so I was exposed to a lot of what was alternative with regards to spirituality through them. And I ended up moving to Findhorn, which is in Europe, it's kind of known as the Vatican of the New Age. And so in that year, we had lots of amazing people like Eckhart Tolle or Carolyn Mace, or big names in transpersonal psychology would come through. And in Findhorn, it was very normal to be practicing several different practices at once and discussing them all the time, morning, noon, and night. And so I got to see that there's a lot of ways, in Buddhism, we talk about a wheel, and there's many spokes that would take you to the center of the wheel, many ways to awaken. And so I was very taken by Buddhist ideas, but every once in a while, my heart would have this yearning for the love and the poetry that I would be feeling every time I would just open up my Course in Miracles. And I was gaining, over years, I was getting more and more clarity as to what it was aiming at. But it took me dozens of years, I would say, to really start to embody it and know that this pretty much was the path for me. And I, as I reflect on it, like, well, what is it that, what is it about A Course in Miracles that really, did the trick? I'm even living in a spiritual community right now. It's based on the teachings of Sri Aurobindo, the mother. Aurobindo was a saint, well, not a saint, what would you call him? One of India's premier thinkers on spirituality, and wrote tons of books and looking at integral yoga, bringing together all different ways that yoga was trying to get to the inside of that wheel with all the spokes. And so integral yoga is basically, the idea there is that we are in an evolutionary consciousness modality here on earth, that we are evolving this consciousness, and that instead of trying to leave the planet, we could do good works here and integrate and bring more of that onto earth. And so that kind of aligned with me. But the special thing about Course in Miracles, having tasted a whole lot of ways of, so much meditation, so many retreats and all that, what stands out is that Course in Miracles is a relational spirituality. So it's something that you are practicing in relationship to other people. And so as you become more awake to watching how the ego is co-opting your thinking and your life and the activities, and that you're projecting all the time, you're always having a kind of a holographic experience with the person in front of you. And so you can tell how things are kind of going in your life by how you are seeing the other person. And so the Course's whole simple theme of non-judgment and letting go, forgiveness, that way of kind of assessing, how deeply you've integrated the whole concept that other is self. Every religion says, love the neighbor as yourself, or do unto others as you have had done unto you. Or, there's other variations like don't do to others what you wouldn't want done to you. But it's all the same thing. All those religions are all saying that brother is self. And it could be more explicit like that. Like, that at a certain level in consciousness, it is just one big ball of light, let's just say. And so to me, that simplicity is a turn on. That simplicity is like, okay, I think I can just hone in and just keep mastering how I'm responding to life and other people and into myself, because the non-judgment is starting with the self. And in our culture, especially, we have a very competitive culture, which makes us all feel unworthy and not good enough. You know, you go to school and somebody's getting an A and you're getting a B, and okay, so now there's your value. And we pretty much grew up with that. And so all of us are kind of walking around, all of us, it's kind of an exaggeration, but most of us are walking around not feeling totally complete or good enough, or where we should be, that kind of nervous feeling inside, that kind of restlessness. And so restlessness, actually, you know, the Course in Miracles has a beautiful quote, "I rest in God." It's one of my favorites. I rest in God. And if you look at the Tibetan Book of the Dead, there's a great, you should watch this documentary. I hope it's still on Netflix. It's narrated by Leonard Cohen, and it's done by the Canadian, the Japanese, and the French film boards. And it's basically looking at, you're up in Tibet and you're watching a Lama read the Bardo, these little scrolls, tablets, to the dead body as it's passing over. And one of the things that they're reminding, so you have the Tibetan Lama, let's say, who's reading over it. He's saying, "Remember, O Honorable Shogyam, you are not your thoughts. You're not your thoughts." And so they're coaching him how to be disidentified with thinking, which is, you know, non-duality. That's, you know, the crux of it. And of course, Miracles is kind of a non-dualistic teaching. And so it's an understanding that we are not our body, not our thoughts, not our mind, not our emotion. And that we want to, the goal is to have so much of an integration of knowledge of who I am, that I am spirit. I am as God created me. And that's another, you know, magnificent quote from one of the lessons. And that the key to a course is really that remembering, you know, so it's remembering that that the divine is always with you, the divine is everywhere, that you're in relationship to it. And then it's just an invitation to, you know, act like it, think like it, feel like it. And
so Monique, could you speak to your personal experience and what kind of shift you had as a result of your spiritual practices?
Yeah. So, okay, personally, like I said, you know, it's a gradual deepening for me over many years until it became my rock. And during those years of, let's say, I'd have periods of depression or periods of feeling lost or periods of, you know, flatness, let's say, you know, that the course would be something that, you know, that would kind of save me, because it would get me right back on track. Like, okay, so, oh yeah, what was that vision again? Because the course says, you know, above all else, I want vision. And I want to see, actually, above all else, I want to see. And so it helped carry me out. It almost came like in wafts, you know, over years of, you know, going down, feeling kind of flat, then coming back up, reading more and more, maybe doing one more year. I did a number of years of doing the lessons. And actually I have the book here. And then certain things would just kind of click. Like my life, like what I was experiencing on my life. Now I had, you know, I would go back to text and I would find the thing that would help me really reflect on what was in front of me. You know, you'd think you'd think you could just read it once and you got it, but you know, the training of the mind can be quite hindered by the ego. Let me tell you. Anyways, but let me just show you something funny. So I've had this particular Course in Miracles, and I took it to the to like Staples one day, because, you know, I'm always carrying out this heavy, and it had become so shabby, you know, like I've marked everything, and so I had it divided into I ripped it into 3 pieces, and I put it in these little binders. That way, when I'm studying, it's a lot lighter. And, my little kids started writing on the pagers. You can have one page where she writes poop. When you're 8 years old, poop is funny. Anyways, but just holding this, I start to feel amazing. I start to feel very, very secure. So it's like this love. It's like an extra lover. Another book that I wanted to show you guys that has guided me is this one here. I don't know if you can see this. And this is called Gifts from A Course in Miracles, and it's by Francis Vaughan and Roger Walsh. But it has just tiny little quotes about different topics, and just opening it up. Like, okay, I'm feeling some suffering coming on here. And you just open it up anywhere and you point to it, and I always get like amazing insight. Like, oh yeah, that's it. Whatever suffers is not a part of me. So it's a question of identity. So as far as your question, I don't
And
know
can you repeat that again, Monique? Can you repeat that again?
Whatever
What
suffers is not a part of me. So that's an amazing lesson. And so what that's saying is, well, if it's not a part of me, who's me? Because I seem to be suffering. And then you kind of look like, oh, I'm really identified with this story. You can call it ego, but this whole story that I think I'm this story. And then I'm forgetting that I'm this other spaciousness that is filled with grace that wouldn't have a story like that just, and there's a distinction between suffering and pain. Like, you can be brokenhearted, if you lose your pet or some other drama, pain is there, but the continuous suffering thing that we tend to do to ourselves, that's when it goes from pain into the ego taking us for a ride. And what else should I say about this? I've loved belonging to Course in Miracle groups. And so I've learned a lot from just that belonging to a group of people that also have this passion for vision, for seeing the world from the eyes of Christ, or the eyes of love. And that is very, very rich experience. So I'm glad you ladies are doing this, because it's a very efficient way to go very deep very quickly, to have partners, to be learning together from life, to have people that see the same. In Buddhism, we talk about taking refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And Sangha means community. So in Buddhist teachings, they would say, the community is upholding your mental state. So that the fact that you guys are creating a community that really uplifts and holds that commitment to seeing the world through your heart like that.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. I didn't mean to.
Go ahead, Carly.
Yeah. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that has been so, I just, that distinction that I don't have to suffer, first of all, that suffering is optional. Theresa keeps saying that. And so when you are suffering, you can all of a sudden stop in the middle and go, oh, now wait, if it's optional, there is a better way. And then that part of me that, the one that's suffering is not the true me. That's such a beautiful distinction. And it may take a while for these thoughts to keep flooding over people, the repetition of it. But thank you. It's so beautiful when it does really integrate into your life.
Yeah. One Course in Miracles teacher said, an indication of how fast, how well you're doing on this path would be how fast can you get off it? Like, how fast can you drop your story? So what suffers is not a part of me. And that you catch yourself and you say, oh my God, I am creating such a story about this. I am in so much pain. And then for me, the trick is to see sometimes I think of my ego as an octopus. You take one arm off and the other one slaps you in the face. It's all sticky and gooey, and take another one and there's another one. And for me, like, let's say I'm wrapped up in a story. It's just, and I challenge myself, okay, let's tell the truth about this, let's not lie, what's really going on here. and to see my resistance. So the ego is the thing that resists. And see, you know, where am I resisting letting go, forgiving, and what, and try to find like, okay, what last tentacle is still grabbing, still tasty? Where's my addiction to my nastiness still happening here? And to just kind of peel it off and say, no, do you want happiness, or do you want to be right? You know, so, so the support that I get from these teachings is tremendous. And you know, I've thought, like, for sure I would like it, you know, just at my deathbed, just to have my, you know, or somebody reading from it a little bit, just because it's comforting, it's joyous, it's beautiful, it's, you know, it's truthful. And, you know, there are times when I was reading this book that I would just be brought to tears. Like, I would just be crying, because the beauty of it was just, and I couldn't believe that any human would write anything so profound. You know, it had to be coming from a very high place. And I also, you know, over the years, I have met, you know, some of the original people that were involved with when the course was being written and published. So I've met them face to face and spent some time with a number of them. Jel Jampolsky was one that I, way back in the day in my 20s, I went to his Center for Attitudinal Healing. And I even went to the prison San Quentin to teach A Course in Miracles with him there. And the authenticity of the practice, you could really see it in him. You could really see, like, he was really, you know, and he had a jagged past. You know, I think he had some problems with alcohol himself. And but here he was, really serving the world with such commitment. Well, it goes, you know, the other people that I met also, just the sheer stick-to-itiveness. You know, it's almost like once you get it, once you know, you really have it deep inside your soul that forgiveness is the only way you come clean, you know, real clean. And I'm a midwife, I should say that.
So were there other guides that, yeah. Sorry,
Oh, I was just going to say that I also carry these understandings into, I carry it all my life, but as a midwife, I attend births. And it's amazing how the spiritual psychology of A Course in Miracles is really, really helpful for when I'm working with couples, or when I'm working with women who I'm having them deepen into self-love, and that resting in God. And I place the future in the hands of God is another thing from A Course in Miracles. Those things are really, really, you know, there's so much help there for that transitional time in a woman's life.
So Monique, can you tell everyone who's been listening where to find you? Give us your website and tell us about what other work you have that they may be interested in.
Oh, okay. So I do some spiritual coaching. You can find me at moniquegauthier.org, or you can just email me at midwifemonique@gmail.com. And yeah.
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure having you with us today.
Well, one thing I want to say about, you know, like at the back of A Course in Miracles is a whole section on psychotherapy. And one of the things I always tell my clients is that when I'm with them, that it's what the Course says, we're all on par. That the one person is doing the remembering, while temporarily the other person has done the forgetting, and that the tables could turn at any time. And that if that person's being attracted to you, it's because that's one of the layers of the onion that you're working on. So I always see a gift whenever I'm doing a therapeutic exchange.
Yes, the Course says there's no accidents in salvation.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you again for your lovely presence, and we wish you all the best with your work in India.
Thank you. Thank you for calling me on this. And again, I'm very excited for all the people who get to study with you and to be in community with you. It's pretty powerful. Thanks for doing it.
We're looking forward to beautiful transformation. So thank you for being with us, Monique,
Yeah. Like I
and
said, I
sharing
think it's
yours.
guaranteed.
Sharing yours.
I think if you have a Course in Miracle and a bunch of people together, transformation is guaranteed.
Beautiful stuff.
Mhm.
Thanks.
Okay,
Bye
thank
for now.
you. Bye-bye.